So hi everybody, and the latest episode of the Talking Balls podcast comes out to you every Wednesday morning, and I'm Michael Wright, your host, Writer74 on Twitter, and I'll let my co-host introduce himself.
Hi everyone, Lee here. Lovely to have you on board this weekend. We've got a Northern Ireland snooker legend tonight and an even nicer guy, so really looking forward to the chat tonight.
More of a leg end than a legend, I think.
You said it, Paddy.
And the legend, if you're on YouTube, you'll see who we're talking about. If you're obviously listening, then see if you can put the voice to name. But it's a big welcome to Paddy Wallace. So thanks for coming on, Paddy.
Cheers, Michael. My pleasure.
It's good to see you, and thanks very much. So, well, just I guess how do we find you today? What are you up to? What have you been up to the last week or so? Just let us in a little bit as to what's going on for you at the moment.
Quite busy today. I was home late from work, so rushed it in into me quick shower and a shave to get ready for this. I had a tournament yesterday and I had a late finish. Unfortunately, I lost in the last 16, but I didn't get finished till about 9:30, 10:15 last night. So I was kind of tired today by the time I got home and sulked for a little while. But it was back to reality today now. I had left my son from the airport this morning. He was away in Liverpool for the weekend, and then working for the rest of the day. So glad to get sitting down now and chilling for the rest of the evening.
All go.
Sounds exhausting. Yeah. So I'm quite tired listening to you there. It's quite a busy schedule, that. And what was the tournament yesterday then, Paddy?
It was a local Northern Ireland amateur ranking event run by NIBSA, the Northern Ireland Association. I think it's our fourth or fifth one of the season.
Right.
I've been doing quite well so far. I've won 2 and lost in the final of another one to Robbie McGuigan. So it was a little bit disappointing to exit early yesterday at the last 16 stage. But we've got the Northern Ireland Championship coming up now in March in a really good venue, Drummond Club near Newcastle. So brilliant venue there. Tables are always lovely, and I always look forward to playing there. So hopefully make up for that bad run yesterday with a good run in the championships.
Yeah, is that up on the coast there? Is it, Paddy, in Newcastle?
Yeah. Beautiful place.
Yeah,
wonderful golf course. If you're a golfer, which well, I call myself a golfer. I go out on the golf course and frustrate myself even more than I do at the snooker. But I've played the Royal County Down a few times, and it's one of the best courses in the world. Consistently ranked among the top courses in the world. So
yeah, and
the views are absolutely spectacular of the Mourne Mountains. So my dad was born there, and had a lot of family there as well. We used to go there and visit regularly. So it's a place that's quite close to my heart as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful up around there, isn't it? My family, all one side. My mum's side of the family are from Belfast. So in my mid-teens, we'd often go up to the coast, or we'd go down south, but we often went up to the coast there. It's just beautiful around that whole area, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, wonderful.
And of course, Paddy, along with the tournaments comes the ranking list. How are you sitting in the ranking list at the moment?
I'm sitting number 2 in the Northern Ireland Amateur rankings, just behind Robbie McGuigan. I think he has about 850 points, and I'm about 20 points behind him. So that was added to my disappointment yesterday, because if I'd have won that match, I would have got seeded number 1 for the championship, because I would have passed Robbie, and that would have meant I wasn't playing on the day when Liverpool are playing at home to United, which I now am. So I'm really kicking myself about that.
Yeah, double whammy.
Yeah, I'll have one eye on the football scores the day that I'm playing in Drummond in the championship, which isn't always a good thing. Can affect your mood a little bit when you're playing.
But I mean, obviously, Paddy, you've been going a long time in snooker. Robbie's an up and coming young player. He's a great talent, but to be doing what you're doing in the amateur game, you've been going along. I'm not going to say you're old. I'm just going to say you've been going a long time. It just proves sort of what sort of talent you've got.
You can't say I'm old, because I am old. I certainly feel old when I'm playing, a 17-year-old regularly in ranking tournament finals. And yesterday I played a great prospect, a 14-year-old kid from Northern Ireland called Joel Connolly, and some of the balls he was potting against me, I wouldn't even dream of going for. So it was definitely an eye-opener, but fortunately I played well in that game, scored well, and experience won the day. But that certainly won't be the case for much longer, judging by how young Joel's progressing.
Yeah.
Is that encouraging then, Paddy? Looking at the, we often get guests on here and we want to know about the junior or the amateur scene, the kind of youngsters coming up. Are you encouraged by the scene in Northern Ireland at the moment when it comes to snooker?
Very encouraged by the amateur scene. We had 79 entries in our ranking tournament there, which is pretty exceptional in this day and age. Not quite the same as when I was growing up. There was a fantastic junior scene, maybe 40, 50 juniors playing in the junior tournaments, and probably in some of the ranking tournaments, maybe 160 or 70 players. But we live in a different age now with all the technology and everything that, distract not only the kids, but the adults as well. So I think in this day and age, 79 entries in the tournaments is pretty exceptional. And the NIBSA committee work really hard running the tournaments and drumming up entries. It's not easy, and they definitely put on a good show. Regarding the junior side of things, while we have two absolutely outstanding prospects in Robbie, who's 17, and Joel, who's 14, there are quite a few other decent junior players, but the numbers are low. The numbers in the junior tournaments are very low, and that is something that a fellow called Darren Oldroyd from Drummond S, funnily enough, is trying to address. He's the new development officer for NIBSA, and he's putting a lot of time and effort into not only organising junior tournaments, but trying to drum up interest amongst juniors by organising coaching and everything like that. And hopefully that will pay off now in the years to come.
Yeah, and is that a side of things that you've gone to? I mean, you're obviously still competing. I mean, you've been in Q schools. It's not as if you're not still kind of playing at a good level. So are you, as one of the, and take this the way I mean it, but, as one of the more experienced elder kind of statesman players in the group, do players look to you for guidance? Are you getting more into, almost mentoring or that kind of coaching thing?
You guys are very diplomatic about the veteran status. I did experiment a little bit a few years ago with coaching, and I've got to be honest, I found it very difficult. I could see what people technically were maybe not getting quite right, but it's actually, if you look at someone and they've got 2 or 3 things that you can see are wrong, it's very, very difficult to say you need to fix A, B, and C, because once you pollute the mind with all that stuff, it's very difficult to cope and put it all into practice. Maybe I was, because of my perfectionistic nature, I was guilty of overcoaching, and I found it quite difficult to help people. A lot of people that I coached, so I didn't do that much coaching, a little bit, coached a few different people, but a lot of the people that I coached didn't really seem to improve, which I found really frustrating, because obviously I was trying my best and I was working hard with them, and they were working hard too. But I went to see Terry Griffiths in the mid-90s when I was struggling. I was 150 in the world rankings, wasn't really going anywhere, and I went to see him, and he was absolutely brilliant. The best of both worlds. He's very, very gifted coach, and he had all the experience of being out there in the arena and knowing exactly what it took to get to the top level as a professional snooker player, which at the time was what I was aiming for. I didn't quite manage it. I got to a reasonable level. He had me go from 150 in the world to 34 in the world in about 4 seasons, which, looking back, I'm pretty proud of, because there were 700 pros when I started. So, it was a really tough school, and a lot of, super amateur players from England all turned pro at the one time, and the standard was high. Not as high amongst the mid-ranked players as it is now, but it was still tough going to Blackpool and having to win something like 8, 9, 10 matches to reach a venue. When you think now, if you're in the 128, you're going to a lot of venues straight away, which is a lovely bonus for the lads that qualify now. But Terry helped me immensely, and he was also the director of coaching for the WPPSA at the time, and that's where I dabbled in the coaching and went to the classes, the courses, and I got my qualification. But actually putting that into practice was quite difficult. And Terry did say to me, he said, for every 6 people that you coach, 2 will improve, 2 will stay the same, and 2 will get worse. Which, you know, he was very. He was of the mindset where he could accept that, but I found that difficult to, you know, actually trying to help somebody and them going backwards just didn't sit that well with me. You know, you need to be cut, you know, from a certain type of cloth to you know, have the thick skin to be able to do that. And you know, I found it a little bit of a struggle, to be honest.
I think it's quite difficult, Paddy, to actually get across to the person you're coaching, you know, what you're actually trying to say to them. And I suppose if they're a beginner, they might not have that level of knowledge in snooker that you need. So it's quite hard to get that information across. I got coached, I'd done a session with Chris Small, and he was absolutely fantastic. It just seemed the information he was putting across, I knew exactly what he was trying to tell me, and it made complete sense. But I can imagine to somebody that's maybe not played a lot in the game or whatever, it'd be quite difficult to take that on board and execute it.
Yeah, well, one of the advantages I had when I was getting coached by Terry was I was a full-time player. So, you know, he would give me some stuff to work on, and I would go and really work on it. You know, I put in 5-6 hours a day religiously, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, which really gives you a chance to bed things in. But if, say, a player comes to you who's making, you know, an odd 20 or 30, and he wants to improve, but he's working or he's a student and he has other commitments, and, you know, he's not going to go away and be able to put in that kind of time. So maybe you would see someone once a month, and in between times they've done 10 hours, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I was working doing 40 hours a week trying to perfect what I was trying to put into practice. And somebody who's playing, you know, 2 and 3 hours a week and trying to take on board some technical stuff that you're telling them and trying to get it bedded in, it just doesn't really work.
No. Sorry, going on to your career then, Paddy. 1994 you turned professional, and the year before that you played in the World Amateur Championships, and you got through to the semi-finals of the World Amateur Championships, and Ty Pitchett beat you 8-7. Can you remember much about that match? Obviously very close to getting to the final.
I have a feeling we're going to be talking about a lot of memories that I have tried to suppress during this chat. I still have nightmares about that.
If you want the rainbow, you're going to have to put up with the rain, Paddy.
Pardon?
If you want the rainbow, you're going to have to put up with the rain.
Yeah, that was a really sore one. He was massive favourite to win the tournament. A superb player from Thailand, and I was really chuffed. You know, my only appearance in the World Amateurs, and got to the semis, and it was a tight game. I think it was around about 4-all, and then I just found a weak gear, and I had a great run to go 7-4 up, first to 8, and I was so close to getting to the World Amateur final, and I wasn't really mentally ready for it, because I went into the match thinking, right, this guy's the favourite, and, you know, I just want to give a good account of myself. Then all of a sudden I was in a winning position and I couldn't quite get over the line. Now, he played very well to come back at me, but when he started coming back at me, I did miss a couple of chances. I'm not talking about simple match winning chances, but a chance in the balls to score, and, you know, only getting 20 or 30 instead of the 70 or 80 you need to kill the game. And obviously it was a very, very disappointing loss to be so close to the World Amateur final, which he in turn, he ran out a very comfortable winner in the final. So I still look back on that with a bit of regret.
My apologies, Paddy.
No. Here, I've tortured myself about it for nearly 30 years. So you don't have to apologise at all.
No. Of course, 1998, you won. Let's talk about a better memory. You won the UK Tour event, number 4, and you beat Sean Murphy in the final. I think that was to get you back on tour, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It was a huge change in system, because, as I said earlier, when I turned pro, you just had to pay your money. You didn't have to be of any standard. You just had to pay your money and take your chance. So that's why there were so many pros, 700, and after a few seasons of that, they realised that the system wasn't really working that well. So they decided to take everybody to Plymouth for, I suppose it was the first ever Q school really, but it was existing pros ranked up to around about the 200 mark or just beyond. And they all went to Plymouth to play off for 32 places on a new 96-man main tour. So they took the top 64 onto the main tour, and there were 4 tournaments in Plymouth. I think it was 4 tournaments in Plymouth, where 8 players, the quarterfinalists, came out of each of those tournaments and joined the 96 on the main tour, which meant all 96 players went to every single event. So that was a big change. You weren't getting your crack at your 7, 8, 9, 10 tournaments and getting loads of matches. It was pretty cutthroat. I didn't get through that along with a lot of others. And then I went on to what was called the UK tour, where we played in clubs all around the mainland. I think that obviously there was the one in Stirling. There was I think Aldershot, Newcastle under Lyme. Can't remember them all now, but from those tournaments they drew up a ranking list, and the following year they expanded the tour again to 128, and I think it was something like the top 32 on that ranking list then joined them on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been top 64. Can't remember the exact numbers, but they were experimenting with a few different formats before they eventually came on the one that they settled on, which was about 128 to 192 on the tour eventually a year or two later. But getting back to the UK tour event in Scotland, I was doing okay. I'd had a decent run the first one to the quarters, and then a couple of average enough results. So I knew I needed to get something like top 64 to get on the tour, and I was sitting maybe that stage maybe 25, so I was looking pretty good. And I went to Stirling, Stephen Hendry's practice space, Spencer's, excuse me. And I'll never forget it. I drew Simon Bedford in the first round, which was a super tough draw. Simon had won the previous UK Tour event, and he had won about 8 matches in the World Qualifiers to qualify for the Crucible. So he was coming in against me about 17 unbeaten or something like that. And it was a really tough first draw. And I think he'd maybe just had a wee bit of burnout. He'd had so many matches in such a short period of time. I played well and won that game 5-1, which was a big confidence booster for me. Played the legend that was Tony Knowles in the second round, and won a tight one. And then once you get into the tournament, you can get on a wee roll. And fortunately, that's what happened for me. And rolling along nicely, and all of a sudden I'm in the final against a 15-year-old Sean Murphy. Would you believe? And Sean came through an amateur pre-qualifier to get into that tournament. And he won 10 matches in the amateur pre-qualifier, and then he won 7 matches in Stirling to get to the final. Incredible. And whenever I do bump into him, we have a chat about it, and he remembers it very well. And it was a crazy match because he was 4-1 up first to 6. It was on Stephen's practice table, and the cloth had been on for a little while. I was quite surprised. I thought playing on Stephen's practice table would be like absolutely perfect conditions, but it was a little bit worn, and it was tight and it was tough. And Sean was 4-1 up, and I won something like a black ball game, a respot of black, pink ball game, a black ball game, and then absolutely destroyed him in the last. I won it on the blue. So how you can win 5 such close frames in a row to beat a player who's butting everything inside up to that point, it was just meant to be for me. It was just my time. I think it was a reward for all the time and effort I was putting in, traveling over to see Terry and putting in the long hours, and the snooker gods just decided to smile on me that week, thankfully. Yeah, of course that takes back onto the tour, and obviously 2000 you got beaten the last qualifying match against Dominic Dale to get to the Crucible. We'll not dwell on that, Paddy, but the following year, that was your year, and you actually made the TV stages of the Crucible, got to the quarter-final. Could you talk us through that? Yeah, it's quite funny actually, because mentioning that Dominic Dale game, I was 9-6 down and I had a 90 and a ton to go 9-8, and I had the ascendancy and I missed a Blackwood spot late in the next game. Dominic got over the line to beat me 10-8, so I was really disappointed because I had a great chance to go 9-all. And on a joining table, Joe Swales was 9-6 down to Stephen Maguire, and he won 10-9. So it would have been such a lovely double for the two of us to do the same thing and qualify for the Crucible. And then, lo and behold, the Crucible comes around in April, May, and Joe's playing Dominic Dale in the quarterfinals. And I'm sitting there sick as a pig thinking, that could have been me, that could have been me.
Exactly.
And then, unbelievably, 12 months later, it was me that was playing Joe in the quarterfinals of the World Championship. I remember that night that Joe was playing Dominic, I was driving to a Northern Ireland amateur ranking tournament, because back then, if you were a low-ranked pro, you were allowed to play in the amateur tournaments because they weren't getting enough entries because so many of the amateurs had turned pro. And I'll never forget, 12 months later, I couldn't believe it when I thought about it. That's right. I was thinking I should have been playing Joe, and then 12 months later it was.
But Paddy, you took some of your best stuff to that event. You were really in a good place with your game. And last 96, you beat Nick Walker 10-2. And then the really tough player who you spoke about, Simon Bedford, 10-9.
Yeah.
So it could have been all halted there. So into the last 48, you beat Joe Perry, 3 centuries, 10-4. And then your debut, Alan McManus, no mean feat, TV stages, and you whacked him 10-2, 135 break at the Crucible. Could you take us on for there?
Yeah, I sort of, when you put it like that, it puts it into perspective that I was playing good stuff. Nick Walker was a tremendous player, so to beat him 10-2 was a great result. Remember, it was a tough game with Simon. I was flagging a little bit in the second session. It was getting late at night and I was getting a little bit tired, and I was pushing myself to send one more big push, and again made a 50 odd under pressure in the decider and got over the line. So those are the tough ones, when it's late at night, you've been playing all day and the concentration's starting to go, but there's a lot on the line. If you dig out those deciders, it's very rewarding. And then Joe Perry, what a player, and Joe has gone on to win a ranking tournament, and UK semis, Masters final, like absolutely fantastic career. So to beat him 10-4 in the final qualifying round was give me a lot of confidence going to the Crucible, because it was I rate Joe very highly, and I was really pleased to beat him by that score. I'll tell you something amazing about that match. I was 6-3 up at the interval, and went back to my B&B, little B&B in Newport at about 20 quid a night. Rock and roll lifestyle. And I wanted to go for a little sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I tried to sleep and I was tossing and turning. I says, right, so forget about this. So go back down, hit a few balls before the evening session. And I went into the practice room and I screwed my cue up to start practicing, and the joint cracked.
Oh,
I am honestly, like, if I had that cue at that point, I'm still using the same cue. I had that cue at that point for 9 years, and I'm 6-3 up, trying to qualify for the Crucible, and I screwed my cue up to practice for the final session, and the joint cracked.
You must have thought that was over.
I absolutely panicked, and I'm going like, what do I do? Right, don't do anything. Go and see Laurie. No, sorry. First thing I did was, because I had the cue fully screwed up, but the butt end of the cue, the crack appeared there, even though it was fully screwed up. So I had a few balls and there was no bad noise out of it. So I went to see Laurie, and Laurie said, just play with it. Don't screw it down. Just play with it, and I'll try and fix it up for you after the match. So fortunately, it didn't have any, ill effect on the cue, because it was screwed up tight. If I had tried to unscrew it, it could have caused problems. So I just left it up, played the match, managed to get over the line against Joe 10-4, and took it into Laurie, and he glued it, and I played with it. Then I took it to John Paris, who took the old joint out, glued the crack in the butt, and put a new brass joint in it, which is still holding to this day.
Wow. That must have been it.
Still using the same
Paddy,
cue.
that must have been in your head though, for the rest of the match.
I really panicked at the time when it happened, but when I started to hit a few balls and there was no bad noise out of it and there was no poor reaction from the response of the balls, that gave me a little bit of peace of mind. And then when Laurie said, just keep it up, don't be screwing it down, and we'll sort it after the match, again, that gave me a bit of peace of mind too, because he was an absolute wizard at the cues and the tips and everything, so but it was a shock to the system initially when it happened.
I bet it was. Were you never tempted, in later years to change cues?
Yeah, I've been very, very tempted in the last couple of years, because I've always struggled with cue power. My cue power certainly not one of my strengths, and I've noticed that it's probably because I'm getting older and slower and weaker. It's my cue power's becoming even less of a strength. And I've thought about trying different cues. Joe Swales let me a couple of try start of last season, but having used the one cue for, 1982, what's that, I'm going to be 30 years this year. Wow. Adjusting to another cue is going to be very, very difficult for me. It would mean putting in a lot of hours and a lot of time, and I don't know if I'm, at this stage in my snooker career, if I have the time to do that or the inclination, to be honest.
Yeah. So there we go. Going back to the championship, Alan McManus, last 32. Yeah. That must have been a great feeling to beat him so heavily, 10-2.
Yeah, it was a major shock. You can imagine what it was like trying to sleep that night when it was 8-1 up. It was absolutely bouncing. Yeah, it was. I saw it as a tough draw because Alan had never lost in the first round of the Crucible. So I was thinking it's highly unlikely that it's going to be me that's going to bring that run down the end. But fortunately it was. I didn't settle too quickly in the first frame, missed my first couple of chances. And then I think I had a 60 odd from my third chance. And that, to get a frame on the board and not lose 10-0 was the first target. And, I genuinely wanted to go out there and try and give a decent account of myself, give Alan the game and not pick an absolute muppet of myself. But it worked out. It couldn't really have worked out any better. And the 135 was massive confidence booster. I think that was third frame. So, really sat me down. And again, the snooker gods were smiling on me because Alan definitely didn't have one of his best games. He struggled quite a bit,
Yeah. And then obviously on to the last 16, you had Mark King and another convincing win, 13-5. Two centuries this time. So still cueing very well.
Yeah, I was scoring well, which is obviously very pleasing. That would be one of my strengths when I'm playing well. I can score quite heavy. I learned a good lesson earlier that season because the first time I ever played on TV, I beat Dominic Dale 5-4 in the Grand Prix, which was a great achievement for me, obviously, to be on TV for the first time because it's very alien conditions with, there's no light shade that's, miles up in the ceiling and the cameras are following you around. And I did well to block that out because Dominic's a very good player. And obviously, he beat me in the World the year before. So I beat him 5-4. But that was on a Saturday afternoon, and I was playing Ken in the last 32 on the Wednesday afternoon. So I was stuck at the venue in Telford from Saturday through to Wednesday, and you're only getting your 2.5 hours a day practice. And by the time I got round to playing Ken 4 or 5 days later, my head had gone, and I was just feeling very rusty because I wasn't practicing as much as I had been. So I learned my lesson for the world. When I beat Alan, I had 3 or 4 days off before I played Mark King. I think I beat Alan on Tuesday and I was playing Mark Sunday. It might have been 5 days off. So straight away, I went home on the Wednesday, flew home on the Wednesday and put in 2 or 3 days really good, solid practice and flew back Saturday morning to play Mark on the Sunday. And that was definitely the right thing to do because if I'd been hanging about the Crucible, just taking an odd half an hour here and there, I would have lost that nice feeling of being in stroke that I had. And fortunately, I carried it on against Mark. And as you say, a couple of centuries, was very pleasing to do that. And 13-5 against a player of Mark's caliber was an amazing result for me.
Yeah, and then came the big game in the quarterfinals. You must have, I think, for both of you, Joe Swales and yourself, you're good friends, Paddy, and you both must have fancied this game because you grew up playing with each other. So how did that game go? I know you've got a story about this game.
it was such a strange feeling playing Joe. Like I met Joe for the first time in 1986 in a junior tournament. So 15 years later, we hit it off straight away. And you know, I used to travel to Belfast to practice with him. He used to come up and stay at my mum and dad's, and we would go out and have a few games. And it was, you know, really close friends. But we never played for anything. We never even played for a fiver once in practice. And all of a sudden, we're playing each other in the quarters of the world for 36.5 grand. So trying to get your head around that was you know, it was really difficult. You're sitting beside each other in the seat, and we're sort of looking at each other like, this is weird, isn't it? You know. So anyway, the first session was poor stuff, and I was 6-2 up, but I was struggling. I wasn't scoring. I was only making 30s and 40s and nicking frames, and Joe was a bit all over the place. So we met up in the interval and we had a chat. We said, look, you know, we've got to just treat this as a normal match, and you know, go out there and try and beat each other's brains out, and you know, after the end of the match, we'll go back to being friends again. We had a hug and said, right, that's what we're going to do. And I felt absolutely brilliant having had that chat at the start of the second session. I went into the second session wanting to win it, you know, 6-2, 5-3, and just put the match to bed. And I felt so good at the start of it. And then I missed the mid-range red halfway through the first frame, and he punished me. And he got a wee bit of momentum going. And Joe's, you know, fantastic player when he gets his tail up, as he has shown time and time again. He showed it in the previous round when he was 8-3 down against Mark Williams, and he came back to win 13-12. He showed it in 2000 when he was 12-8 down to Parrott in the second round, and he came back to win 13-12. So when he gets on a run of frames, he's hard to stop. And unfortunately for me, that's what happened in that second session. I hit the wall a wee bit. Once I started to lose a few frames, I found it difficult to respond, and he won that session 7-1, which turned the match on its head. So anyway, I regrouped, and I came out that evening, and 4 times I got back to 1 frame behind, and I couldn't just quite get level, and he finished me off 13-11. So obviously disappointed to lose from 6-2 up, but if it had to be to anybody, I'm glad it was Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a fantastic run, and obviously super proud of that run. And unfortunately for you, Paddy, that was the first and last time you made it to the televised stages of Crucible. You must have thought at that time that would have been like a platform for you to kick on.
Yeah, that's what I was really hoping for. Back then, the rankings were in brackets of 16, so you had top 16. Top 32, top 48, top 64. So they all got seeded through 1 round more each time. So, like, for example, if you got to play, top 64 were in the same round right up to 33. So if you got through to play one of them, you then played another match against one of them to go through to play top 48. I think that was it. Was that right? Anyway, each time you got 16 places further up the rankings, you were better off in terms of prize money and less matches to play. If I had beaten Joe in the quarters, the ranking points would have got me to number 32 in the world. So that would have really set me up in a great position starting the 21-22 season. But by losing that match, I finished 34, which still I would have bitten your hand off for at the start of the season, because I was ranked about 58 or 59 at the start of the season. So it was a big improvement. At the start of the next season, I was provisionally 20 after 2 tournaments. So I basically had the world at my feet there. If I just kept going the way I was going, I would have got very close to the top 16. And then I just stopped. I started getting a few bad results, and confidence got knocked a wee bit. And for the rest of the season, I think I only won 2 more games, including losing the first game in the world to a Welsh guy called Paul Davies, great player. But I had a nightmare there. I was 7-0 down, and finished up losing 10-5. So from looking like I was absolutely certain to get into the top 32, I finished 36, and that was a major blow, because I had given myself such a fantastic platform the year before, and I didn't take advantage of it.
And of course, being in that 32, you're a little bit more protected than being outside the top 32.
Yeah, well, you automatically get to go to back then. You automatically got to go to a lot of the venues directly without having to qualify. and you were, last qualifying round of the world as well. So yeah, it was a big advantage then. Plus, you were guaranteed an awful lot more prize money starting off, so that would have taken a lot of pressure off as well.
Yeah.